Hello, you are listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer, Amazon #1 bestselling author. You can find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. While you're there, definitely sign up for my newsletter so you can learn even more about how you can heal yourself naturally. Now, we have an incredibly special show for you today because we are going to be talking with you about what it feels like to be healed by an angel. Our guest today is University Professor Jacqueline Chau. And Jacqueline Chau does not have a website. However, you can follow her on Instagram, and her Instagram is Hello Jacqueline. And I'm going to spell that for you because you need it spelled. It's hello, HELLO, and then two more O's. So that's with three O's, and then underscore Jacqueline, JACQELINE. Welcome, Jacqueline Chau.
Yeah, good morning. How are you? It's my pleasure to be here.
So, Jacqueline Chau, what happened to you when you got COVID at the beginning of the pandemic in 2020? Because as I recall, you got COVID right at the start of the pandemic. So, when was it and what happened?
Yeah, I got my COVID incident happened at the beginning of March, and it was very brutal because, I came down with a fever right away. Um, and I kept on burning up and burning up. Obviously, I couldn't get tested because testing was limited. And at the same time, not a lot of people knew about COVID. So yeah, I was pretty much staying at home and getting self-treatments.
So I remember March 2020 because I remember at that time there was discussion even about masks and do we wear masks? Do we don't wear masks? There were no vaccines available at the time. And all we knew that was that people were getting sick and even dying, and there weren't even any prescribed treatments at the time. So you got
Right,
sick right at the beginning.
right.
And were you working at the time or what happened?
Oh no, I was not. And thank goodness, everything went into kind of a settling stage where I don't have to um do any resignation or anything from it. Yeah.
So, how did you feel at the time that you had COVID? How long did your illness last? What was it like for you?
Um, it was a very traumatic experience, but now looking back at it is definitely a catalyst for the changes that I'm having in my life. Um, I believe that these symptoms actually lasted roughly like a month or two. Um, but the ongoing symptoms, like I have long COVID or I had long COVID after that. So the ongoing symptom was more than a year.
And I believe that you came to me after you'd had COVID for over a year. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah.
So, I met Jacqueline Chow because she came to me as a client for medical intuitive healing work. Now, will you share for our audience? Um, I believe that you've had a visitation by an angel. What exactly happened to you?
Yeah. So basically, since no one knew about COVID at that time, and no one really knew what to do with COVID as far as treatment goes, um, I was just burning up the whole time. I couldn't even lay down because everything felt hot to the touch. And my lungs were burning up. I couldn't breathe well. And, I felt like I was almost passing out. Um, and I felt like there was no hope. At that time, I felt like there was no hope. Um, and with desperation, I turned to the spirituality and I called out and I asked for help from my spiritual guides, my ancestors. And I remember it was clear at, as if it's happening at the moment, that it was at night at that time and I couldn't sleep. It was 1 or 2 in the morning. I was sitting in my bed, barely breathing. I was barely breathable, and the lungs were burning up. So, in our desperation, I seeked for help from the angels as well. And I remember my dad, talked about Archangel Michael. So, you know, I just put my hands in the prayer position and I was like, please, please help me. I don't want to die. I'm too young for dying. And it's very brutaling what I'm experiencing as far as the physical pain. So, I sent my prayers to the heaven. And I didn't expect much out of it, to be honest. It was just a prayer out of desperation and out of faith. And what I saw changed my life from that moment on. My room was completely dark because remember, it was like 2 or 3 in the morning. So at that time, my room lit up, like the whole room just lit up, and there was light everywhere. And then I saw 3 angels ascending from the sky, down into my room with Archangel Michael in the middle with his wings the biggest. And then on this side was Archangel Raphael. And then on the other side is Archangel Cameo. And they came to my room. Um, Honestly, at that time, I was in so much pain. I really didn't know what was happening. I haven't put anything together yet, but I was just witnessing that, and I felt the immense peace. I felt the immense healing right away when they visited. And then they came and basically they told me, because I was sitting like this, I couldn't sleep. So I was literally sitting like this. And so they told me to bend over, um, and, in a child's pose. And so I bent over, and then I saw that they told me to basically get out of my body, like the soul. So I saw my soul like ascending from my body like this, and it was just hanging up here, while they were doing psychic surgery on me. So basically, what I saw at that time was that Archangel Michael, he took out like a blade, a sword blade, and he cut into my lungs. So he sliced my left lung in half, and then he sliced the right lung in half. And then he used a special tool. It's kind of like a spatula, but I wouldn't say it's a spatula because everything they used at that time was metal. So he scraped it out. He scraped out all the char, because my lungs were burning up to the point that it felt as if someone barbecued my lung on the grill. It was really that hot. It was really burning up. And so when he was scraping it, I was, floating up here, and I saw that it was a lot of char. It was a lot of yucky and black stuff that was coming out of the left lung. On the right lung, there were also chars that were coming out, but it's not as much. And then after that, I saw Archangel Raphael. He stepped in and he took out this jar. It looks kind of like melted marshmallow. The consistency is how I would describe it with the texture. And he took a spatula and he scoped into that jar and he basically slathered that um, that bomb into, the sliced lungs. And instantly, when he slathered that into my lungs, both sides of my lungs, I felt a cooling relief from the lungs that have been burning up for days and days and days. Honestly, at that time, I really didn't know what was happening, because I was in so much pain. So I just watched as the progression happened. Um, but yeah, after that, they basically said that, okay, you're good now. You can go back into your body. And so I went into my body again and I sat up, I sat up straight and basically they ascended up into the heavens. And the lights kind of dimmed away. There was no more lights in my room. And, I sat with myself and I was like, what just happened? Um, and I was like, oh my goodness, I was visited by, angels. So it felt really amazing. I felt their immense love and I felt the peace right away. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. Now, Jacqueline Chau, you mentioned that you were visited by 3 angels. How did you know which angels there were?
You just know. Yeah, like there was no communications, like our mouths didn't move, but we just, I guess, talked telepathically, you know, like they didn't, open their mouth and said, oh, bend over so that, your soul can ascend up and we can work on you. They just communicated to me, through the mind. Yeah.
Now, Jacqueline Chow, I know you're a university professor. Had you ever communicated with angels before that time?
I prayed to them, but I don't know if I've received anything. I believed in angels ever since I was a little girl, seeing the beautiful pictures of the benevolence. But I never really received any like concrete signals.
So you'd prayed to angels before then, but you'd never actually communicated with them.
Right. Yeah.
And you mentioned there was Archangel Michael, who's the protector angel, who's, the chief angel, if you will. And then Archangel Raphael, who's frequently referred to as the angel of healing. And then you mentioned the third angel, Archangel
Camuel.
Camuel. And
Yeah.
what did Camuel do during this experience?
Um, Well, as we know, angels, they don't have a form of feminine or masculine. So, they can be either or. It's just that for us, it's easier to distinguish if we call them like a he or a she. And for Archangel Camuel, I felt it's a very loving, feminine energy, a calm and, you know, nurturing energy. And so, I would call Archangel Camiel at that time to be a she, and she came to just hold the space, to spread the love, because at that time I was in so much fear and I've lost the love that I have for myself or, any hope at all. So I feel like just having her presence in that space, in that moment, she was able to spread that and helped me find that again.
So at the time that you were visited by the angels, how long had you been suffering from COVID?
Um, it was roughly a week. Yeah.
And did your physical symptoms shift after being visited by the angels?
Yeah. So the lungs felt less like it was on flame. It was still, suffering. But my lungs didn't feel as if people were grilling it on, the flame. So that was excellent.
And were there any other physical healings that you experienced as a result of being visited by them at that time?
They came and visited me again. I think a week or two after that, and they did give me a healing. They did send me like divine love, divine energies. And I honestly do believe that with that healing, it helps to recreate or restructure my DNA as I was going through the healing. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you were visited by the angels a second time. So what happened when they came a second time? What time of day? What was it? what was going on at that time?
Yeah, so it was around, noon or afternoon time, and I was just in my room because obviously, I was quarantined. I couldn't be out and about even within my own space. So I was just pretty much isolated in my room. And I was just sitting on my bed, um, just looking out the windows. I was feeling very sad and desperate at that time. And then I saw them ascended again from where they, came down the last time. And this time, they just, came over to my space, to my bed. And basically, they said that, oh, we're going to give you a healing to help you with the process. And it was just a lot of energies that were sent into the physical body. And I felt it's very interesting, but the intricate structures of my DNA, I felt the shifts within those structures. I couldn't really explain it, but it was just something that I experienced. And this time it was a more gentler healing. So it's not as intense or as, dramatic as the other one. This one, it was more of like energetic healing. Yeah.
So when they came a second time, you mentioned they descended from above. And
Mhm.
what did you see? What did you feel? What did you experience?
Oh yeah, so I just saw, three beautiful angelic figures, and it was in the same order, with Archangel Michael in the middle with with his wings really spread out, Archangel Raphael, and then Archangel Kemuel. And they went into my room, and then they walked slowly towards me. And of course, with their presence, it's just a benevolence feeling. It's a feeling of love and compassion and forgiveness and light. Everything just feels great, basically. Yeah.
Now, everyone, I know we're just hanging on Jacqueline Chau's every word, but let's take a moment to listen to a message from one of our commercial sponsors here at UK Health Radio. And we're going to be right back with University Professor Jacqueline Chau and hearing more from her about what it feels like to be healed by angels. We'll be right back. So Jacqueline Chau, you mentioned the second time it was you were visited by the angels. It was about in the middle of the day. You were sitting on your bed in your room, quarantining by yourself, and they descended from above and they surrounded you with this benevolent energy. What did you see? Can you describe for our audience in a little bit more detail what they actually did?
Yeah. So basically, they just surrounded me. They made a circle around me. And I pretty much saw that I was encapsulated in these beautiful wings. They have really big, big wings, and I was just encapsulated in that. And it's just like they huddled all over me, and I became so loved, and I became so protected. And within that huddling, they just sent energies into my body. Yeah. It was a moment of silence, like no one spoke anything. Yeah, but you just felt it.
And that second time, the first time you're visited by the angels, I remember you were saying that you prayed to them. The second time, had you been praying and asking for them to come visit you again?
Um, Yes, and it was more of a very general prayer, like, please help me to get over this. I pray that you can help me heal. You can help me get back to my complete human wholeness. And so I wasn't praying at that time, but I've been doing my prayers up to that time. And so that day they appeared. Yeah.
And after the second visitation, what physical shifts did you experience after they came the second time?
Um, well, with this time, it was a slower shift, but I felt it because I felt like this took more time to restructure everything in my body down to the cells. So it took longer. It took a couple of, I think, like 2 or 3 months to see the changes, but you can just feel that changes were happening underneath. Yeah. So a lot of purging of the toxicity and purging of the blockages in my body so that there's room in the body for new cells to grow, for things to flourish. Yeah.
Now, how did your angelic visitation change you?
Oh, it was beautiful because I felt like I became more of a more fated person. I've always believed in, the spiritual side, and I've always believed in the angelic realms. But it was a concrete affirmation for me that, yeah, they do exist and they do help when we need the help from them.
Did you tell other people at the time about what happened?
Not at that moment, because I was just going through so much and I was still processing everything that I was going through. But later on down the road, I did, share with a couple of close people about my experience.
And what was their reaction?
Um, some of them were amazed. Uh, and then others, they're still processing it.
Now, I know that you had long COVID, but you were mentioning that your severe symptoms really shifted after the first visit with the angels, and after the second visit, you felt the changes over time. What helped you to get over COVID, looking back?
Yeah. So honestly, looking back at that most intense moment in that night, honestly, I do feel like I could have died that night because it was very painful, and I don't think that my lungs would be savable if it were not for the angels that came to me and helped me to heal. So that was a very big moment in my life. And then after that, I prayed and prayed and prayed to the above, to the heavens, to the divine, that I would get some guidance, I would get some healing. And one way or another, either I seeked out people or people come into my life to help me heal. um, and also, my parents have background in TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, so that also helps um, with my healing process.
So, did you receive acupuncture or take herbs?
Yeah, they helped me to put together the herbs like herbal teas and stuff like that to help with the symptoms. Yeah, to alleviate some of my symptoms.
Yes, and I know you and I had a couple of sessions as well, and we looked at, I believe I did a medical intuitive reading for you and looked at everything that you needed to do to get well and move forward. And at that point, I think you'd been suffering from long COVID for about a year.
Mhm.
Now, how has your self-care changed since recovering from COVID?
Honestly, I feel like COVID was a big catalyst for me because back in the days, pre-COVID, I was just living and I was just a walking shell, basically, working, social activities. And I never really had that self-care for myself. Yes, I mean, I do, eat and I do sleep, but that was pretty much it. yeah, I didn't really understand what it means to have the self-care and self-love. But after the COVID experience, it allowed me to go inside of myself and to have that compassion, to have the understanding that my body can heal. It just needs the love and the attention, the right environment, the patience and the compassion for it to flourish. And of course, anything is possible.
Beautiful message. Now, Jacqueline Chau, since being visited by three angels, have you learned more about angels and healing by angels?
I would like to learn more, honestly, because I feel like the angelic realm is so vast. Um, and I don't know enough information about them yet. I'm still learning. I'm still getting myself familiarized with their names and their abilities and everything. But in time of needs, I do ask for, an angelic support to help me, to get through my days or get through my struggles from then on. Yeah.
So, so you mentioned that now moving forward, when you're needing help, you ask for help from your angels. So what does that look like? Do you pray to them every day? Do you ask for specific help? What does that look like for you?
Yeah. So I do pray to the divine and also to the angelic beings. And as well, whenever I'm in a tough situation, I would ask for specific help with that situation. Yeah, through prayers, of course.
Now, if someone is listening to our talk and they're struggling right now, what advice would you give them about asking for help from angels? How would you recommend that other people go about that?
Um, with what I've been through, I understand that there are times in our lives where we can feel desperate, we can feel hopeless, like nothing will work and nothing is working. And I understand that feeling. I know how that can feel. And at the same time, I would like to share that, you know, have that faith, even if it's just a little flame of hope inside of you. Have that faith that things can shift for the better for yourself and for your life. Um, just have all that faith, all that hope, and put that into your prayers because the universe is always listening. The divine is always listening. And believe that angels will come to you when you are in need of them, whether you see them, whether you experience, a sensation of them or not. Know that they are there and they're always supporting you. They're always loving you and they're always sending that benevolence light and energy for you.
Beautiful message. Now, for our audience, um, if you go to my website, catherinecarrigan.com, I have an entire page devoted to photographs of angels that I have personally taken with my iPhone. And I tell everybody I've got a whole page of angel photos, and they're like, yeah, whatever. And then they go and look, and it's like, oh my God, there they are. And so if you go to, again, catherinecarrigan.com, and you'll look at the very top of the website for angel photos. And Jacqueline Chau, when you saw the angels those two times, could you describe for our audience, what did the angels look like?
So I saw light beings basically. Um, and I saw very clearly and vivid Archangel Michael's wings. His wings were spread out, like it took up the entire wall in my room. Um, and he was in the middle. Um, his light was whitish golden light. And then on this side, it was Archangel Raphael, and his light was golden and greenish light, like a very light green, but it was very soothing. And then on this side was Archangel Camuel that has the pinkish golden light. And, it's not like any concrete figures or anything that you can really make out, but you can see the figuring of the wings, and the structures of the lights in colors. Yeah.
And you mentioned when they came to visit you the first time, they didn't say, "Hey, I'm Archangel Michael, I'm," but you just knew who they were.
Right. Yeah.
Yes. And um, how did they actually communicate with you? Did you hear their voices, or did you just have an inner knowing of what they were doing?
So basically, how I would describe it would be, uh, well, it is telepathic communication. But how I would describe that for our viewers would be as if you're sitting right here and you're thinking about someone who said something to you, yesterday or the day before yesterday, and you hear that voice in the head, talking to you. It's just like you hear the voice in the head and you just know. Yeah.
And with that, we're still hanging on every word from Jacqueline Chau, but let's take a moment again to listen to another message from one of our commercial sponsors here at UK Health Radio. And we'll be right back with University Professor Jacqueline Chau talking about what it feels like to be healed by angels. So Jacqueline Chau, university professor, in my work as a medical intuitive healer, sometimes I teach my clients how to talk to their angels because there are specific techniques that a person can do to learn how to talk to their angels. And I myself, every morning, I talk to my angels and I actually channel them and I literally write down the messages they have for me today. But one of the things that I find is that when I'm teaching people how to communicate with their angels, sometimes there's a certain level of fear and they're afraid. At the time that you communicated with your angels and they came to visit you, was that frightening to you, or was there any fear involved?
Oh no, not at all. Not at all. And like I said, it was just prayers out of desperation and faith. I was just sending my prayers and my intentions to the divine, to the heavens, and I didn't really know I was going to receive anything. But when they came to me, there was no fear that I felt. All I felt was the benevolence energy, and all I felt was the love and light from them. Yeah.
How has the COVID-19 event changed you and your life?
Yeah, so COVID-19, I feel like it affects a lot of people. I mean, worldwide, it kind of shut everything down in 2020 for a couple of months. And I felt like a lot of people were impacted by it. Lives were taken away from us. Um, and things just haven't been the same ever since. As far as for myself, COVID-19 really changed my life as as someone who was just out there doing things and not really being within this body. COVID-19 really allows me the chance, in hindsight now, it allows me the chance to go inward to understand myself better and to have that time for myself, for my own healing, my own growth, and my own spiritual development.
Were there any messages from the angelic realms for all humanity?
Yeah, so it's very loving messages that I've been receiving ever since that encounter with the angels, that, they're here with us. They're always here with us, whether we see them, whether we feel them or not. They're always surrounding us, ready to help us. And they're only one prayer or one call away, um, you know, and they're always watching us and looking down onto us and protecting us.
Now, not that I know anything, but my experience with angels is that everyone has angels, spiritual guides, and they're literally within your energy field, right? And so for myself, I've got an angel on my right hand. I've got an angel at the crown of my head. I've got an angel at the back of my head. I've got an angel at the back of my heart, an angel at my throat, and an angel in the front of my heart. And I know what each one does. My angel on my right hand, this is the angel of perception. The one at the top of my head is the angel of receiving. The one at the back of my head is the angel of peeling. So it allows me to peel away all the layers of facade. So when I'm doing a medical intuitive reading, I see the truth. There's an angel of restoration at the back of my heart, and I call on that to restore my energy to perfect balance. The one at my throat is for self-expression, and I ask that angel to help me speak with clarity and compassion and unconditional love. And the one at the center of my heart is the angel of magnificence, so that everyone around me has a magnificent experience. So it's my experience that you as a human being have angels in your energy field, and they have specific purposes. And as you get to know your angels and as you communicate with your angels, then it's kind of like, if you have a team, it's like I've got a hairdresser and an accountant and a and a
Right,
handyman, and you can call on the different ones.
right, yeah.
So Jacqueline Chau, how do you get in touch with the angelic realms now? What's your
Yeah,
process?
yeah, so it's beautiful that, you share that experience because it's very true. The angelic realms is full of angels. Of course, the main ones, the archangels that we know of, like Archangel Michael, Archangel Raphael, and so on. Those are the main figures. But I do believe and I do know that within that realms, there are thousands upon thousands and thousands of angels. And we all have, angels around us that is specifically designed and assigned to us. So whenever, I called on my angels and asking for help, or even just sometimes talking to them, right? Sometimes it doesn't need to be like, oh, I'm needing your help, but it's just a conversation. I would just, put my hands in a prayerful position and I would just pray to them, um, as if like talking to a beloved close person, and said that, hey, today I experienced such and such, and I just want to share it with you. Or, I'm going through such and such. Could you please help me? And like you said, there are different angels with designated tasks that will come into our life to help us for that specific situation.
Yes, and my experience also is that just like people, there's a great phrase, people come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime, right? And so we have this team of angels who are around us. And yet, so for example, Archangel Michael came to me in 2019 and told me that he was going to help me with my 10th book. And so every
Mm.
day I prayed and meditated to Archangel Michael, and I wrote my 10th book, Reading the Soul, in a month, which was the fastest I've ever written a book. Now, Jacqueline Chau, what do you feel will come out of your personal COVID-19 experience on a bigger scale of things?
I do feel like, you know, um, it's also my, I wouldn't say mission, but it's just also my passion with what I went through to share my story and to share with the world that, yes, there is the other side to life, the spiritual side, the magical side. And I am the walking testimony of that. You know, I feel like I'm to share the images that I received, the experiences that I went through, so that it can reach out to many, many people in different revenues as well. so that, they can have the faith, the hope that they need in time of desperation.
Yes. Now, have the angels continued to help you after your first two encounters with them?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. And, with my day to day situation. And then there was another time where, some loved ones, some close loved ones, they were going through their intense COVID experience, a couple of months or a year down the road. And they were in a state of fear. A lot of them really didn't know if they were going to live or die. Um, and, I just kept telling them that I saw angels, protecting your household, protecting each and every one of your family members, and you will be okay. It's going to be a tough ride. I told them that, but everything will turn out all right because the angels are surrounding you in your house, sending you love and light and healing energies. And I felt that, with me being the messenger of what I saw, um, it allows and it gave my loved ones the hope, the faith that everything will be okay. So that propels them to have less fear and have more faith in themselves and in the healing that was happening at that time to get through it. Yeah.
So, Jacqueline Chau, university professor, um, when when you talk to your angels on a regular basis, do you pray to them or do you just have a little chat with them? How do you go about it?
Yeah. So, you know, um, in most times I would pray to them. I feel like that's my way of connecting to them is just put my hands together and just close my eyes and have that sacred moment, um, that basically time kind of stops and it was just me and them in our space. Other times, I would just chit chat with them as if you're calling up a friend and say, "Hey, this happened," or "Hey, do you have a moment? I want to talk with you about this." And it's just like a conversation with people that you love throughout the day.
So, Jacqueline Chow, would you be willing for our audience to share one of the prayers that you typically use when you communicate with your angels?
Yeah, so my prayers are really simple, and honestly, my prayers varies from day to day, how I'm feeling at the moment. But mostly, I pray for strength and courage, and to go through what I'm going through in life, for the clarity to understand and discern the roads that I need to take in the future, um, and to have the love and light in my heart, so that I can be that conduit of light, to be the light of myself, and also to share that love and light to anyone who seeks it.
Beautiful. And I'll share for my audience that I have rituals that I do the moment I wake up in the morning. First thing I do is the Lord's Prayer. And then I
Mhm.
have a prayer list of people that I pray for. So I pray for this long list of my loved ones, as well as anyone I know in the world who is suffering at that time. And then once I've done the Lord's Prayer and I prayed for my loved ones, then I call on each of my angels by name. And then usually I get my journal and then I'll write down the messages, whatever they have to say for me today. And usually I write it down. Actually, this morning I was in a bit of a hurry. So it was just sort of like a little brief chat, like you mentioned. I didn't write down what they had to say, but I do really appreciate writing down what they have to say. And then I can go back and look at it. Like
Right. Yeah.
I I read the messages that the angels gave me a year ago, and it's like, oh, okay. Because at the time, sometimes you don't really understand what that means or what is the context, but in retrospect, you can. Have you
Right.
written down any of the messages you received from the angels?
Yes, and honestly, that's a really good practice, an everyday practice. And I love that you share that with me and with everyone else, That was how I started doing it as well. Because honestly, going through what I went through, I couldn't keep a lot of things in my head at that time, with the brain fog that a lot of people experience with COVID. So I had to jot everything down. And it was a healing experience to quote unquote journal, whatever messages that came through for me from the angels, I would just write it down. And usually it's pretty short and concise, but the messages are very loving and you can just feel the energy, even if you read it 2 years, from that day.
Yes, and I appreciate that you explained that frequent their messages are short because everybody wants this tone, like
Mm,
War and Peace, and sometimes it really is short. So can you give us an example of some of the messages that you've written down from your angels?
yeah. So I feel like the angelic beings always speak uplifting moods. It's never anything negative that I have received from them. And just, a word of caution, if you ever be in contact with your angels and you receive something negative, it may not be your angels. Yeah. So you understand what I'm saying as well. And most of the times, they tell me that you are loved and you are loved. Um, and you are a child of the divine. You're here with a mission. Everyone has a mission, and you're here with a soul mission, a soul path, and you're on your way to completing that. So it's always very affirming, very caring, and it's just like, having a team of invisible cheerleaders always rooting you on. Yeah.
I love that. A team of invisible cheerleaders. It's so true. So,
Mhm.
Jacqueline Chau, university professor, any final thoughts for our audience about what it feels like to be healed by angels?
Um, I honestly feel like it's a significant event experience that, I experienced, and it's very memorable. It cannot be forgotten, and it changed my life. And so I just want to spread that message of hope, that message of love, and that message of light, that everything that you are going through now, no matter how desperate it is, um, no matter how much suffering you are feeling, know that at the end of the tunnel, it will be okay. Maybe it doesn't feel like it at the moment, but just know that your angels are by your side and they are watching you, they're caring for you, they're sending you love. All you have to do is reach out in a prayer and ask for them, ask for their assistance, and it will come.
Beautiful message. Thank you so much for sharing. I know when I first asked you, you said, I'm not ready yet. So I really appreciate that you're ready now to share this message for all of humanity. You've been listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer, Amazon #1 bestselling author. You can find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. While you're there, definitely sign up for my newsletter so you can learn even more about how you can heal yourself naturally. Our guest today has been university professor Jacqueline Chau. She does not have a website. However, you can follow her on Instagram at Hello Jacqueline. So I'm going to spell that for you. Hello with 2 O's afterwards. So that's hello with 3 O's underscore Jacqueline, Jacqueline. And remember, you are surrounded by angels 24/7. They love you unconditionally. And when you're wanting to call out for them, just say a prayer and they will be here to uplift your soul on all levels. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.